So, welcome everyone to Contemporary Issues on December 31st, 2023. Isn't this supposed to be? Go ahead. Go ahead. Vicky's gonna blow the.
Made me go buy these last night, and now he doesn't even have it all.
Happy New Year. Everybody has a happy, well,
Can you use the mic?
Use the mic, please.
You're always on,
Oh.
everybody else got it.
I didn't actually hook it up today. I will speak up louder, absolutely. But welcome, we've got about 16, 18 people here today. So kind of a light day, but isn't this, what did they say? The numbers today are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The numerical days on 12/31. So, yes. And so we're going to talk today about a little review of 2023 and look at 2024. So our usual announcements, Zoomers, nice to have you here. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen. And we are recording this for future playback. And we want to have other announcements. Want to welcome Grant here from Nebraska. Grant is going to be moving to Colorado. So when he retires from teaching next May, he was just telling me, as a science teacher, high school science teacher. And so
Yeah, two of us now.
Two of us.
yeah.
Which one did you teach?
Well, right now I'm teaching environmental science to juniors that don't like to tape science.
Oh.
And there's several that sleep through the class. I wake them up, here's your papers, and then it's their choice,
Well, I taught the same class to freshmen, but it was astronomy, geology, and environmental science.
Oh, okay, all right. And I'm teaching some freshman physical science too. And
What part of Nebraska?
northeast Nebraska, up near Norfolk. Norfolk is the high school that I'm teaching.
I drove by Johnny Carson's home a couple years ago.
Oh, sure. Yeah, she's got a picture of it.
And the sign in front.
Well, have you seen the mural there's a mural if you go down Norfolk Avenue.
No, I just noticed all the storefronts that were boarded up.
And they have opened quite a few.
Have they?
I don't think there's hardly any closed down.
Oh,
But
good.
there are things like, I couldn't even tell you what they are, but they're not selling much. They are insurance people, things like that.
Yeah,
We got the update on Norfolk.
all right.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And then our friends in the back just got back from 3 months in Japan. Yes. What was that like?
Ate a lot of sushi.
A lot of sushi. Very good.
Ate my way through Japan.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place in Japan?
There are so many. We did a 50-mile bike hike down in Shimanami National Park. It's a string of islands from the main island to another island called Shikoku. Just beautiful ocean and islands
Yeah.
and food.
I want to go to Kyoto someday.
Yes, Kyoto's a beautiful city, very historical.
Exactly.
Very good. Vicky and I are going to Cabo San Lucas on Tuesday for 5 days. We've never been to Mexico, so we're looking forward to that.
Disfrutas.
Frutas?
Disfrutas.
What's that mean?
Enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Frutas.
I thought it had something to do with fruit.
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
Well, hopefully it's a safe place, because we don't want to have to take up a ransom money collection.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Bring this
If it's a
back.
phone call, it might not be a scam.
We're getting all inclusive, so we're
not going off the.
not gonna venture off the
Not
map very far.
wandering in.
My son-in-law, we're going with my daughter and son-in-law and the 3 granddaughters, and I don't think he's gonna let those 3 girls off the premises. Of the
No.
resort. Not if he's smart. Also, there are a plate of cookies here that please,
Thank you.
please keep them up. Yeah. Send them
No,
out.
it's good. Oh, don't have to connect. You can either take a whole one from half
Oh,
one.
well, that's, I keep asking. More food, more food, that's right.
Make sure.
Well-
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit share screen here
Happy.
and share a few photos as I do. I'm gonna present the top world events of 2023 from January through December. Just to go through these and then talk a little more about the top religious events, including the Methodist split and how that has gotten attention this year. And then we'll look at 2024. So just jump in here with me and share any thoughts you have on events that happened, especially the lessons that we learned as we look back. Also, does anybody go into their personal calendars and look back over the year? I did that yesterday. You know, look back at last January, February, I think doesn't seem like that was 12 months ago, you know, and think about what we did and
I threw
maybe
mine away.
you threw yours away. Okay,
Some of us.
sometimes it's fun to go back and look at those things.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay. And this is just a smattering of events from January through December of this year. January 27th, widespread unrest erupted in Israel following an Israeli military raid into Jenin, which left 9 Palestinians dead. Israel responded with Israel attacked that area. Then the Palestinians sent air balloons launched into Israel as retaliation. Israel responded back with airstrikes. Jewish civilians were murdered in a synagogue in Neve Yaakov in a terrorist attack in response. So back and forth and back and forth as an example of what was happening there. And that reminded us, of course, of the October 7th attacks that took place. And this was one of the larger things that spurred that.
So there was a lot of buildup to the
A lot of-
October. not
Exactly,
just
that's what I'm
all-
trying to say. Yes.
Okay.
Build up. This was one of the larger events that was a build up to it. And as you may remember from the class we did before on Israel, there were reports about the buildup by Hamas much prior to last October, but they were ignored by Israel, thinking it was just another unsupported intelligence report that something like October 7 could happen. But that's an example of last January.
October 7.
October 7, this last October 7 was when Hamas did the big attack.
Trump would say hummus.
Hummus?
Hamas, okay.
Trump said hummus.
In February, we had the Chinese spy balloon. Remember the spy balloon that was shot down? That was last February.
Belatedly shot there.
Belatedly shot down over South Carolina. And this event was followed by subsequent detections and shoot downs of other high altitude objects elsewhere launched by China, and discussion of what the US and other countries had balloons over other countries. They all spy on each other, but this was one that got attention. Also in February, a Norfolk Southern train carrying hazardous materials derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, with multiple cars burning for more than 2 days, with hydrogen chloride and other dangerous gases released into the atmosphere. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And there was lots of talk about, are the train companies doing enough to protect towns from dangerous chemicals that can be released?
Don't they just have one employee on those trains?
Just the engineer?
Just the engineer, I think I read. Maybe 2, but I think it was just 1.
But there was also talk about how the federal government should be regulating train transport to the Department of Transportation, doing a better job of watching out for these kind of things.
Was there also an issue of overwork by engineers and
Uh-huh.
not being fully awake and having to take too many shifts in a row?
Yes, there
Well,
was.
with one engineer on that train, you know he's gonna get tired.
Yeah, right.
Well, there's no backup
Exactly.
if he has problems.
Yep. Then in March was the Chinese election, in which they reelected Xi Jinping as president for an unprecedented third term. And Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to resume diplomatic relations, which they had severed in 2016. And in the Middle East, those relations getting better in talks mediated by China also. So another example of China having influence.
So it's Iran and China and who else? is involved?
Iran and Saudi Arabia got
Saudi
back
Arabia.
together in talks that were mediated by China.
Okay,
So an example of
I'm
that.
just showing my stupidity or, things you don't hear or.
Everything's connected there. Then also in March was the Silicon Valley Bank, the 16th largest bank in the US, failed, creating the largest failure since 2008, affecting companies around the world. Remember that certainly, people saying, how do we know our banks are safe?
Yeah.
What can we do? Also, in the end of March, OpenAI launched their ChatGPT program, which responded to images and created new possibilities greater than ever before and launched the whole AI, artificial
I don't
intelligence.
even know what Chat GTP means.
Really?
It's just a program where a website where you go on and you can tell it what you want. We did a class on it.
Oh.
And you can tell it what you want and it will immediately create your term paper or your dissertation and anything else you need much faster than ever before.
Well, and then as the teachers are receiving those papers, when papers come in from the kids, they're identical.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Said, uh-oh, we've got 10 papers exactly the same word.
Saying the same
All the
thing.
way through.
Yes, our granddaughter said she knew that and so she wouldn't use it for that very reason. She
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
want to get caught.
Exactly.
But English teachers use turnitin.com to identify plagiarism.
So then what grade do you give them?
What's that?
What grade do you give them for cheating, basically?
Oh, you mean when
Yeah.
like 10 of them
Yeah.
cut 10 papers, you just turn it back and say, sorry, to redo this,
Redo it.
redo it, and if you reuse it again, there's certainly other people gonna reuse it, and so do it the right way.
That's good. You don't flunk them right off the bat.
No, they made a bad choice, and you give them a chance to make another choice.
Do they know they're not supposed to do that though? Has there been?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
So.
I had, we had a project, where the kids were supposed to make a trifold. And so,
Yeah.
had one boy, he went up and there's this girl that he didn't like. So he went up and he grabbed the trifold and he raised her name and put his name down and handed it back in. So I caught him. He's a starter on the basketball team.
Oh,
So, and I talked to the basketball coach. He had a little extra conditioning. So
good.
Mm.
Have to
Well,
fix it.
then I had another boy, he came up and this was like a month ago. He said, could I have my trifold? Because my mom wants to see it. So gave it to him. Came back with another boy's name. Exactly, I mean, it was the same pace. They think they could, they think I'm old and I don't notice that.
No, they're both in the second part.
So that's the old style and we've got the AI new style.
Yep.
I haven't gotten any AI stuff yet.
We'll hear a lot more about AI in the future.
And I imagine
In
the
fact, there
English
is
teachers
a,
and social studies teachers are gonna get a lot of that.
What about the
Yes.
class that's coming up on AI?
yes, I was just gonna say, there is a webinar coming up February or March here at the church about AI also. So-
Well, that's what all the posters and things are and the
Yes,
TVs are for.
right. I forget what the date was.
I just saw it on the calendar and I'm like, well, what is this gonna be on and who is this person teaching it? I didn't
It's a
even.
professor from Southern Methodist University, I believe. Gonna be talking about and explaining the pros and cons of AI.
Well,
They
AI,
did an active mind session.
Yeah.
In March, or I'm sorry, that was March. April 15th of this last year, nuclear power in Germany ended after 50 years with the closure of their 3 final nuclear power plants. Germany didn't like nuclear power because it was considered dirty compared to green energy. And so they ended all of their nuclear power plants. But that doesn't, Ron, doesn't that come at a time when nuclear power is becoming more popular and seen as a really good thing for?
Yeah, many of the environmental community are saying it's gotta play a role.
Mhm,
It's gotta play a major role
mhm,
in a green energy approach.
My nephew's working on the next generation nuclear power plants in Oakland, California.
Oh, great.
Is that fusion?
No, it's still fission, but but the reactors are much smaller.
Small modular nuclear reactor.
And what Kieran says is China is way ahead of us in new generation nuclear technology. He had several, during his time at MIT, he had several trips he took to Japan and China in order to finish his professor.
Also in April, a mass cult suicide occurred in Kenya. 429 people were found in graves in a forest in Kenya. They were followers of the Good News International Ministries. Ironic name, but we just had a class on cults a few weeks ago here, and here we look back, even in today's day and age, we don't often hear about these things, but they still happen. Hundreds of people commit suicide in a cult in
Would
Kenya.
they drink Kool-Aid? like-
Yeah, Jimmy Jones.
Didn't, yes, reminds us of that, but I don't know exactly how it happened.
Okay.
Yes. In May, Canada and Saudi Arabia restored full diplomatic relations after breakdown in their relations over the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. Remember the Saudi Arabia assassination? I think it was in the US that occurred.
No, it was in a Turkish embassy.
Was it, oh, a Turkish?
He was visiting Turkey. I think he was trying to get permission to get married or something.
Yes,
He was a Washington Post columnist.
yes.
Went back to Turkey for some reason, went to the Turkish embassy in Turkey.
He went in and never came out.
Yep, went in, never came out.
Remember that one, so that
Came
still
out,
has
but it-
reverberation.
Yeah, in peace.
And pieces?
Also in May, of course, the Ukraine war was still going on. Russia and Belarus signed an agreement in Minsk, Belarus, allowing the stationing of nuclear weapons on Belarus soil by their benefactor, Russia. This is a picture of Minsk, Belarus. Looks like a pretty place.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
Very pretty, but I did not know that they had nuclear weapons provided by Russia.
I don't think I want to visit there though.
Don't want to go there.
But it's still under the control of Soviet military personnel.
Yes.
They didn't just hand them completely to Belarus.
Oh, okay.
The Belarus has a leader who's buddy with Putin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's considered a puppet state of
Yeah.
Russia. Also regarding Russia, last May in the invasion of Ukraine, a dam in the Russian-controlled region of Kherson was destroyed, threatening the region with devastating floodwaters. I remember that one, when a big dam and then villages below it were wiped out. And in the end of May, wildfires in Canada sent smoke down to New York and in the Northeast United States, resulting in the worst air quality of any city in the world in New York at that time. Susan, we remember the wildfires from last spring and summer in Canada.
Blame Canada.
In June, Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Wagner Group, will remember this, began a part of the Russian army, began an armed conflict against the Russian military, seizing the city of Rostov and portions of another while withdrawing the next day after a peace agreement was brokered between the Wagner Group and the Belarusian president. And we all will remember, a couple months later, the Wagner Group leader was mysteriously killed in a airplane crash. Yes, after that happened. In July, a large incursion by Israel into the West Bank killed 13 people and injured more than 100. An attack claimed by Hamas as retaliation for the incursion occurred in Tel Aviv the next day, injuring 9. So another example of these things just between Hamas and Israel just occurring every few months. July 21st was the Barbie and Oppenheimer dual movie openings, a major internet and cultural event. It
And
was
it's earned more
called.
money than Oppenheimer.
Barbie earned more money than
Yes.
Oppenheimer.
Yes,
Is
yeah.
that right?
Oppenheimer was number 2.
It was number 2. It was called the Barbenheimer movie event. Mhm.
Didn't it break the Titanic record for the most gross
Yes.
funds?
Did it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Surpassed Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Biggest movie in the
Point
world,
4 billion.
of course.
We all saw Barbie. We all saw the Barbie movie.
Did you like it? I loved it.
Did you really?
Did you really? Well, it was all the feelings, but it was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very well done.
It had the theme of women empowerment.
You know, it's satire.
Right,
kind of,
exactly,
But it was
exactly.
very well done.
Yeah.
It was very
exactly.
creative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Went to a gathering at my daughter's house, and one of their friends came over, he's probably 250 or something, and he had on a Barbie sweatshirt. I said, "Love me one," and I said Barbie on it.
My.
I got one for
Daughter,
Christmas.
too.
He said he wanted
I
it.
got one for Christmas.
You did.
What's the volume enough?
Oh.
It's his can being enough.
Yeah.
Get the
Oh,
easy
pen up.
Easy
Oh, I
bake
love
oven.
it. That's cute. Pen up.
Steve, did you get the easy bake oven also?
With an apron.
In July, there were wildfires in Greece that were the worst in that country's history. Remember that? And then in August was the Hawaii wildfire
Oh,
in
yes.
Lahaina. Vicky and I were just there 2 years ago, stayed in Lahaina, so we thought about all those places we visited, and here's a picture of it just burned out.
On the Rose Parade, they are, Lahaina is, there's a band that's gonna be marching in the Rose
Yes.
Parade.
Oh.
Yeah.
I saw that.
So didn't, there was a school downtown. Was there a school that was not destroyed then?
I don't remember. All I know is that the band director, he got a bunch of kids from all over.
Oh, wow.
Not just from, that
Lahaina.
area, but from around
All the island.
all the
Yeah,
islands.
wow.
When is this
That's
parade,
so
tomorrow?
neat.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, the Rose Parade.
Yeah.
I always like to watch that.
There was
Yeah.
a big piece on it yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I was watching. I saw that.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah.
ABC.
That's neat.
Also in August, under global warming, the world's oceans reached a new record high temperature of 73 degrees Fahrenheit, exceeding the previous record in 2016. August was also the hottest month on record for globally average surface temperatures. And
And we don't have enough snow in the mountains.
we don't have enough snow in the mountains. The Canadian wildfires were going, 68% of the Northwest Territories were forced to evacuate to other parts of the country. Almost 70% of their territory was evacuated. In August also, India became the most populous country on earth, surpassing China. With 1.4 billion people, India surpassed China. And India also became, or sent a spacecraft to land near the south pole of the moon, carrying a lunar lander and a rover, which it deployed on the moon. There's kind of a little graphic of it with the Indian flag. Ron, how many countries would have sent something to the moon like that? Would there be just
The moon, I'd have to get the exact tally, probably about 5.
US, Russia, China,
Now, India,
India?
and
Is it
Yes.
European?
I think United Arab Emirates might have
Maybe.
done something in the
Oh.
game.
It would be a huge, yeah, somebody in Europe,
European Space Agency,
Yeah.
we're thinking.
Yeah,
but a huge expensive project to do something like that, so India was touting that as a milestone.
Well, aren't we planning on sending back to the moon here in 5 years? maybe?
people back, yeah,
People, yeah.
people back,
Is that the Artemis mission?
I think that's it.
August, also Wagner Group founder Dmitry, someone, and 8 others were killed when their plane mysteriously crashed
Another
in
one.
Russia.
Goodness gracious.
No.
September, United Auto Workers began a strike against the 3 largest automakers. And protests in Armenia with the dissolution of their government happened there. September, archaeologists in Zambia found the world's oldest wooden structure. Interlocking wooden logs dating back 476,000 years.
Wow. Were they
Zambia,
fossilized or were they still wood?
it didn't say, but some indication of human-like creatures creating interlocking wooden logs almost a 500 million years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. October, this guy, who remembers this spell? Kevin McCarthy, who was elected speaker earlier in the year, is removed as Speaker of the House of Representatives by one person
Matt
in the
Gaetz.
House, Matt Gaetz of Florida, who sparked the crisis and vote on whether to remove McCarthy. And then October 7th, of course, the Hamas war launched in southern Israel, prompting a military response from the Israel Defense Forces. And we've covered that, and it's still going on. What's the current state of it this week? Does anybody remember? Is it in limbo with trying to negotiate for more hostages being released?
The death toll's definitely
21,000.
anyway.
The negotiations moved to Egypt instead of Qatar.
Okay, okay. AI comes back up in November with the first AI Safety Summit in England, with 28 countries signing a world first agreement on how to manage the riskiest forms of artificial intelligence.
What's that mean? Do not feed the AI.
Do not
Don't give it information.
give it
Is that what
more power
Like, do not
to
be
do bad things. Also in November, on a happier note, the Beatles released their last song
Yeah.
Oh,
called Now and Then, which with restored vocals by John Lennon, as well as guitar tracks by George Harrison, that were kept in a vault and somehow compiled together into their last song. And in December, there was a climate summit in Dubai with the first ever agreement by all parties to transition away from fossil fuels. The first such agreement in the conference's 30-year history. And
But we
then,
didn't go, did we?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah,
have,
we had people.
but it didn't say a lot more details on how to transition away or what enforcement would be.
Here they come.
Speaking.
And here, just in the last couple of weeks,
Yep.
the surge of migrants at the US-Mexico border reaches a record of 225,000 crossing the border,
Wow.
the highest month total since 2000, 23 years ago, according to Homeland Security. Over the course of the month, there were more than 10,000 migrants crossing the border daily. mayors in many cities, especially the three Democratic mayors, Denver, Chicago, and New York, banded together and appealed to the White House to stop this international crisis we are experiencing right now, being subsidized by our local economies, said Chicago Mayor Johnson on CNN this morning. The
I've got a
government,
question about that. Is Denver just a sanctuary? I know Denver's a sanctuary city, but are we considered a sanctuary state? The whole state of Colorado? Because they're sending migrants to Carbondale. Or migrants are just going to Carbondale because they've heard there are jobs there.
I've heard that.
And they're being overwhelmed in Carbondale.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes, there is migrant tent city in Carbondale near
Mhm.
Aspen, right?
And where is all the money going to come for helping these people? It's not coming from the federal government. Where are we gonna get it?
Questions?
Your
Good
tax
question.
dollars at work.
No, we don't have tax dollars for this, we have debt for that.
Really, Fareed Zakaria, had a special on TV this morning that, about the causes for this immigration, flow. And, it's the first time I've seen anything about, relating the history and, causes and things like that. Really very good. I didn't finish, I did record it, but, look at it later on, but if you can find it, it's really very insightful.
What are they saying? What, that you got, what are they saying? What are they saying, the part that you got?
Well, the thing that we do, we tend to deal in snapshots and look at the way things are right now. But what he was doing, was looking at the history of migration in this country. That supposedly, I mean, all of us like to, and I didn't get all of the show, so, but the part I saw, supposedly, we have prided ourselves about being the melting pot of the world, and that we have taken great pride in this whole thing. But his point was that while we have accepted migrants from all over the world, migration has not been gentle. There has been a lot of real problems with this, especially in the area of eugenics in the early 1900s, that really gave rise to fascism, Nazism, that we forget about the inflows of people from Eastern Europe and from Italy and from other states that happened in the early parts of the 20th century. And the pure white people from Northern Europe were accepted readily, but the people from these areas were really treated as second-class citizens for a very long period of time. And there was an awful big objection to their immigration. And then there has been other problems.
Yeah, the problem is worldwide, and it's been exacerbated by warfare, global warming, climate change,
COVID.
COVID,
Racism,
racism,
the Chinese
And-
Exclusion Act.
yeah, a whole bevy of things. And we should probably do a lesson on it again in the near future. And it puts us in a real moral dilemma because we simply cannot sustain our country with an unlimited amount of immigrants coming in. From a pure Christian standpoint, we'd say open our doors and send everybody, but the nation will fall if we bring every immigrant from every country around the world into our lands.
Because education and
Yeah.
healthcare can't keep up with it.
Yeah,
Because they all go to emergency rooms, because they don't have doctors.
so it's a real dilemma for a Christian.
Well, it's already happening in Denver.
Oh, yeah,
They're asking for volunteers. I don't know if places is just a middle school or if it's K-8 school now. But, they're having all this crush of all these additional people that probably will be going to other cities in the next year or two, but eventually But now they need all these extra teachers and all the infrastructure. And then Denver Public Schools is being overrun right now.
Yeah.
It's really
And
hard.
already has had political ramifications in the right leaning of so many, countries. Europe, had experienced this inflow 3 or 4 years ago. And everybody, and did a real wonderful job of accepting the immigrants and doing that as good as they could at integrating them into society. But there was an awful lot of objection, according to Marie, there was an awful lot of objection in that a lot of politicians on the left, liberals, lost power and a lot of, right-leaning people, moved in.
Yeah, when I was in the
The
Netherlands.
same thing is tending to happen in the United States.
When I was in the Netherlands for Thanksgiving, visiting my niece, a right-leaning in the tolerant country of the Netherlands, a right-leaning president became, candidate became prime minister in the Netherlands because they're fed up with all the immigration.
So it becomes, how far will this transition go?
You
How
heard the
far
same
will
thing?
it
No,
go?
but I have a friend who lives
To
there.
the point where he's established the extermination camps, which were horrible.
Yeah.
Are we
We
leading,
can't take that.
going in that direction?
Direction.
Well, I'm teaching 6 classes of science and, 3 classes I have an interpreter in each of the classes. And the freshman class, I have 7 or 8 kids that are Spanish speaking. One came from Nicaragua. I was asking her where she was coming from, and I was thinking, maybe Colorado or Nicaragua. Oh dear. So anyway, I kind of put it there. But anyway, and then there's another class of around 5 or 6, and then the last class of the day, there's 9. So you add those 3 classes up, and I'm up close to 20 kids. And I have interpreters in each one of them.
Are they all Spanish speaking kids?
Oh, yes, every one of them. The school district did pick up a few Ukrainians a year or 2 ago.
Mhm.
But anyway, one day the interpreter wasn't there, and so I was just kind of teaching the whole class some stuff, So I went back and I was explaining to them. And they did it. We really didn't have to have an interpreter in there because, and I think we're doing them a disservice by the interpreter being there. We're what's the word, aiding them and they're not having, enabling, that's the word. We're enabling them so that they don't have to learn English as fast. So here I am talking to them and then they sit down and they did their work. I'm thinking, wow,
Yeah.
let's just let them come in and learn. That's what the Germans from Russia had to do back in the late 1890s and early 1900s.
Yeah.
They had to come in and learn. And it took about 3 or 4 generations and now you just can't.
Oh, yeah.
My brother-in-law is Swiss,
I'm sorry.
and
These
he,
were different then. so,
Oh,
Yeah,
And
communities were smaller and people were, it was different.
Yeah.
it took my brother-in-law 7 years. He was married to my sister, they came to the US, took him 7 years to become a citizen of the US. Now, all these thousands of people, how can you do this? The classes he went through and when I first met him, he could speak very little English. But Switzerland, compared to a lot of the other countries.
Well, I have a friend from, an acquaintance, I should say, from Nicaragua. He just left Greeley and moved to Austin, Texas. And he doesn't even have a right to work, much less a green card. He came through Eagle Pass, which is one of the most popular crossing points
Yeah.
on the Rio Grande. And he sent me this, and I had already had him as a Facebook friend from Nicaragua, and all of a sudden he says, "Where are you?" And I said, "Colorado." He says, "Well, I'm in Greeley." And so he's been in Greeley since April of 22. Just left yesterday to go to Austin, Texas, but he didn't even have a right to work. So everything he's doing is illegal. The jobs that he's had as a painter. And some of the people from Venezuela have been getting the right to work. I think it was in New York City or someplace like that, but so many of them don't even have that right to work.
Well,
Permitted.
my brother-in-law 7 years and he was able to work and whatever. I just.
Yeah. Well, they're
But
working. they just-
the backlog on all of those applications is outrageous
Yeah.
because there's not enough people to help process all of that
Right.
because there's overwhelmed.
Well, especially
So
the
they're
asylum,
trying to get right.
you're
to
talking
it.
about the asylum requests.
That
From
plus. right
Venezuela,
to-
Nicaragua, Cuba, and Haiti, those four.
So, yeah, it's just, there's just such an overwhelm to the entire, all those processes.
No restriction.
But you know, if we think about the next
Oh,
30 to 50 years, could that migration actually be from southern states to northern states? Meaning American citizens who can no longer grow crops and the cities are beginning to, I mean, our own population may have to move towards the north because of climate.
Hmm.
And think about that. And do we want to be banned from cities north? I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a global crisis. This isn't just and you know, the border as much as I'm against those border states busing and flying migrants north. I think that's, anyway, it has brought to all of our attention how dire it is.
Yeah.
And it's something that really has to be addressed for humanitarian reasons.
Mhm.
It has to be.
Rights too, I mean, the rights that are being taken away from the southern states, those
Oh.
people will also want to migrate.
I'm curious, how many people here who have, if you look at your history, your family history, did they immigrate from someplace else to this country?
I can't hear you, Alan.
Of course.
How many people in this room, looking back on your family, they immigrated early on to this country? How many are natural?
All of us.
All of us.
Oh, yeah.
So that makes me look at what these people are trying to do.
Yeah.
with a-
We
My
will
Aunt
do
Virginia
it.
was a Daughters of the American Revolution.
So was my
Because,
family.
17, I believe 1760 is when they immigrated from England.
We will do a hour soon on immigration, obviously.
The immigration.
Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about the two top religion events of 2023. Most of the news outlets that I saw identified two, the of change in abortion laws, how the states each individually are deciding their own abortion laws, and then the UMC Methodist split as being the biggest schism in any American denomination in the history of our country. Political science professor in Illinois said. But first, the abortion decision. After last year's decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, the decision on abortion rights was returned to each state to decide what they would allow. Here is a map, of a good way to look at this, a map of what the laws are in each state. And you can scroll over, for example, on Colorado, it tells what the current law is. No restriction. And the state law is there is no restriction on abortion in any stage in Colorado. The only exemption is, or not exemption, but the only additional note is minors under 18 have to have notification or permission by parents to have an abortion. So that is an example of what is currently in Colorado. Let's go down to Texas and look at that. It says banned there, but that's not a complete ban. Texas allows abortion if the life of the mother is in danger, but it's very narrow to almost only that. And we saw just a couple of weeks ago that case of a lady with a fetus that was not gonna survive, and she went outside of the state to get an abortion because she couldn't get it approved in Texas as being a medical exception. So,
You have to die to prove that it was.
Yeah, right.
that
Yeah.
it was,
Oh.
life-threatening, so,
good
yeah.
point, Terry, good point.
Now, the judges in Oklahoma banned, just throughout all the Oklahoma laws, and they have to start back again, start over, I believe, just a week or two ago.
On this,
I believe it, because they were like Texas, just banned completely.
Well, let's click on Nebraska.
Yeah, now Nebraska
It's a
is
different
interesting.
color.
just a little, note here, all the red states, as you can see through the south, it says banned, even though they might have a very narrow restriction on life of the mother. Then there are those who are pink, which allow abortion up to 12 weeks, Nebraska. Up to 12 weeks, looks like South Carolina is also 12 weeks, North Carolina.
What's Kansas, that like?
Lola was in,
Kansas in the light blue is 22 weeks, allowed up till 22 weeks, but Iowa is 22 weeks, Wisconsin. But really, this is a good map to show if you wonder what things look like, how it is broken up. Minnesota is no restriction. I'll just click on a few of these. Montana viability
What's that mean?
means abortion allowed up until the child can live outside of the womb.
Wow.
What's the white one? Is that Utah?
White one, this one,
Yeah.
Utah, 18 weeks. Mhm. Idaho banned,
Kansas is white, isn't it?
Light blue. Light.
Kansas is light blue at 22 weeks. Oregon, pretty liberal, no restriction like Colorado. California, viability.
What's Virginia? It's kind of a
Virginia,
in
we'll go back
between.
over and look at Kentucky is
Another no
banned,
restriction.
West Virginia banned. Virginia is third trimester.
Oh, wow, wow.
Hmm.
So all the states around, there's the women are going to Virginia.
Maryland, no restriction, New Jersey, up into the liberal. Interesting that some of them are no restriction, some of them are 22 or 24 weeks.
Arizona, that's a different color.
Yeah, I think.
Arizona, New Mexico is no restriction. Arizona, 15 weeks. CNN article notes that it's important to remember that Roe being overturned is not the same as there being a federal ban on abortion. It's just that it's now returned to the states. States also can decide whether people can receive by mail the abortion restriction chemicals, medications. States cannot prohibit people from leaving the state and going to another state for an abortion.
Well, that's what Texas is doing. They're saying that if you go outside, you're liable to be prosecuted.
Oh, really?
But I guess by federal law, that is not allowed, so that would still be something that they could appeal to the Supreme Court. What's Florida? We got
Kind of down.
Florida.
That must be like Arizona.
Interstate.
Florida's 15 weeks. So it's of course a religious topic because the Catholic Church still advocates no abortions, and Methodist Church, I believe our status is it's up to the mother and the doctor. We advocate for make abortions rare, but the final decision is up to the patient and the doctor.
The states that pretty much ban abortion, are they providing money support for children that have problems when they're delivered? You know,
Well, that's
the
the
social and emotional problems and things that happen as a result of having a child that maybe shouldn't have been born, you know? That's the problem I have. You know, they ban abortion, but they don't provide all the extra services. Being a special needs teacher, I've seen everything and anything you can imagine. And it's very difficult for these parents, you know, to deal with, you know. Dad's been retired for 11 years, maybe things have changed, I hope.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I have got to thinking, it used to be that, you know, as little as about 15 or 20 years ago, it was almost impossible to assign parentage to the male, to the father of the child. But with DNA analysis now, it's within 24 hours, you can get results on this thing.
That
And
fast.
I'm wondering if a law had to support the children like the woman that has to support the child. That is created by this thing. If that map would change radically, I'll bet it would.
I think the woman would take that child and put it on the doorstep with that man and, you know, have it.
Well, you can put it on the doorstep, but the woman would still have to be responsible because it would be equal.
Yeah.
You know, that both men and women would have to bear financial and physical responsibility for the upbringing of the child. And regardless of it, you know, I was wondering how that would impact.
Probably just be
religiosity of this whole-
It's
Well, the
too
trouble is,
easy.
Jim, even though they may say that unless things have changed in the court system, I have a friend who never got child support, even though he should have.
It was ordered, yeah.
Yeah, they never pay up
Right.
lots of times.
Well,
I shouldn't say that all the time, but you know, it's really hard to get the money.
with all due respect, child support is an obligation that it's a little bit like aid. When you get it, you got it. And you can sue for child support way, way, way beyond the point of impact. So that child could be 40 years old and the mother
Yes.
could sue for child support
Yes. Right.
that was not collected.
Yep.
In the bad. And knowing that, I wonder if legislation would change.
Mhm.
Good thoughts, all good thoughts. I want to give our Zoomers a chance to comment on anything if they would like to. Anybody come on in? Comments, suggestions? Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left
For the Methodist Church.
for the Methodist Church. That's right. That's right. USA Today had a big story on this last week. It said a quarter of the Methodist denominations in the US are leaving the United Methodist Church as one of the country's largest Protestant denominations wrestles with the issues of sexuality and gender identity. More than 7,600 Methodist congregations have left out of the total 30,000 congregations worldwide. This has happened this year in advance of the December 31 departure deadline for congregations to leave.
How many are departing?
7,600.
Out of 30,000.
That's
And that's worldwide, not just US.
worldwide, right? 25% of the Methodist congregations. And a professor of political science who tracks this says it's the biggest schism in any denomination in the history of our country. Among Protestant denominations, the Methodist Church is second only in size to the Southern Baptist, who have not split, obviously, over this issue.
The Presbyterian has split.
With Presbyterian, but they're not as large as the Methodist. A 2015 Pew study estimated there are 9 million Methodists in the US. And protesters objecting to the adoption of a platform rejecting same-sex marriage started this in the 2019 special session of the General Conference of the Methodist. It is expected to wrap up next fall of 2024 when the language is removed from the doctrine. And so that's why the deadline was today, December 31st, 2023, for congregations to decide to leave, so that all the details could be wrapped up before the fall general conference. Controversies have been brewing within the church for several decades over the LGBTQ issues, and just came to a head in 2019 special session, and are now expected to wrap up in 2024 as the majority of the congregations move forward, except those who have gone to the new Global Methodist Conference. Yes.
And global will be the more liberal?
No, conservatives left. Last year, they declared and began to leave and said, we are, I think they took $25 million with them in an agreement to start their new conference.
And that's globally.
That's what?
Globally.
Yes, I believe it is.
It's big in South Korea, so.
What's interesting to me is that when this all first started, the inclusive congregations were gonna have to leave and possibly lose their churches.
Yeah.
And we were wondering where things were gonna go. But then in the evolution of this whole thing, they left. And I think it's very, very interesting, you know, how that happened. You know, I think to me that's says a lot, I think, you know, and good for them, you know, good for them. But I just think, and I've listened to a podcast of pastors who have joined together, and they get together and they talk about how their churches are, and these are the ones that have remained in the fold, how they're growing and becoming more inclusive and helping and outreaching outside of their churches. And it's the past and growing, their communities are growing. And, you know, I mean, I think it's very, very interesting, the whole picture, how the dynamics of it just flip-flopped and then it's going the way it is. So I don't know, it's been interesting to watch, I think, you know.
Yeah.
Anybody know, how the seminaries are shaking out on this? Are they departing or are they staying?
What about the one in Johnson County where?
I mean, Isla is, which originally a Methodist seminary. I don't know whether it is now or not. But there's quite a few Methodist.
Whether the
seminaries out there.
Yeah, whether seminaries would decide to leave the denomination. Good question, good question. We need to wrap up. I want to mention just a couple of things about 2024 as we look ahead. January 15th is the Iowa caucuses. And we've of course seen everybody, those candidates, presidential candidates being in Iowa and New Hampshire. Which is January 23rd, and then February 3 is South Carolina. Everybody's looking at Nikki Haley and what she's gonna do there. And so all this stuff starts in January 15. Then Super Tuesday is on March 5. And next summer is the Paris Olympics in Paris. And November 5 is the presidential election. Busy year.
I just looked at the ILIF website and it says February 16, 18, 2024, exploration creates sacred space for young adults ages 18 to 26 to discern whether God's call in their life is to ordain ministry in the United Methodist Church. It's still UMC.
Okay,
I love.
very good.
Something else that's interesting.
Final thoughts, Carrie.
Is the Pope has recently said that same-sex marriage can be blessed. Now, that's not the same as full marriage.
Right.
Yeah, but blessed. And I think that's
That's a
a
big step,
lovely
though.
step.
Big stuff.
A really important step. Yeah. So that's a good news kind of thing.
A lesson for 2024 we need to do, obviously, is the church's evolution, where is it and where is it going and why? Yeah.
Why is important.
The church in general.
The church,
Yeah,
you do
We'll have a little more focus on Protestantism, but we want to look at the
but the Catholic Church
Christianity.
do that.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Catholics don't intend anytime soon to change their doctrine that, homosexual relations are.
It would include the churches in Europe that are empty. If you're gonna
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah, the nuns.
In Nebraska, the Platte River is the division of the Catholic Church, and there's the Lincoln Diocese, which is south of the Platte River, and the Grand Island Diocese, which is north of the Platte River. The Lincoln Diocese is conservative, and the Grand Island is liberal.
Oh, wow.
And my friend, who had been looking for a church, over the last few years, he's a retired Episcopalian, minister. He goes south of the Platte and he agrees with them, but if he goes to the northern Catholic Church, he doesn't agree with. He's a conservative, pretty strong conservative. And if you remember right, the first, what was that in New Hampshire? You were there, and in Episcopal Church, there was a gay woman who became the bishop in New Hampshire. And that's when he said, I'm out.
Yep, yep.
So there's some things there.
Lots going on both sides.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Good discussion.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. See you next year.
Bye.
Bye-bye.